Wisdom of Sirach, chapter 32. Did they appoint you as a leader of the banquet? Do not exalt yourself. Among them, be as one of them. Take care of them, and only then be seated. Then, having fulfilled all your duties, take your place, that you may make merry for their sake, and receive a crown because of your orderly behavior. Speak, O elder, for this is fitting for you to do so with accurate knowledge. But do not interrupt the music. Where there is entertainment, do not pour out talk, and do not display your cleverness at the wrong time. A concert of music at a banquet of wine is like a seal of ruby in a gold ornament. A seal of emerald in a gold setting is the melody of music with delicious wine. Speak, young man, if there is need of you, but no more than twice, and only if you are asked repeatedly. Be brief, say much in a few words. Act like a man who knows, yet holds his tongue. Among the great, do not act as their equal, and when another is speaking, do little talking. Lightning flashes before thunder, and favor goes before a modest man. Rise to leave in good time, and do not lag behind. Run home, and do not be remiss. Amuse yourself there, and do what you intend, but do not sin by speaking arrogantly, and for these things bless him who created you, and satisfies you with his good things. The man who fears the Lord will receive instruction, and those who rise early will find his approval. He who seeks the law will be filled with it, but the hypocrite will be made to stumble by it. Those who fear the Lord will discover judgment, and like the light they will kindle righteous deeds. A sinful man will turn aside correction and find a rationalization according to his will. A man of counsel will not neglect thought, but a strange and arrogant man does not tremble in fear. Do nothing without counsel, and when you have acted, do not regret it. Do not walk a path filled with obstacles, and do not trip over stony ground. Do not put your trust in an unexplored way, and keep watch because of your children. In every work entrust your soul to the Lord, for this is the keeping of the commandments. He who believes in the law heeds the commandments, and he who trusts in the Lord will not suffer loss. Wisdom of Sirach, chapter 33. Evil will not befall the man who fears the Lord, but in trial he will deliver him again and again. A wise man will not hate the law, but he who pretends to keep it is like a ship in a storm. A man of understanding will trust in the law, and to him the law is trustworthy, because it is a divine revelation. Prepare what to say, and thus you will be heard. Draw on your training and make your reply. The heart of a fool resembles a wagon wheel, and his reasoning is like a turning axle. A lusty stallion is like a mocking friend. He impregnates everyone who sits under him. Why is one day better than another, when all the light of a day in the year is from the sun? They were separated by the knowledge of the Lord, and he changed the seasons and feasts. Some days he exalted and sanctified, and some days he made ordinary. All men are from the ground, for Adam was created from the earth. In the fullness of knowledge the Lord separated them, and changed their paths. Some days he blessed and exalted, and some days he sanctified and drew near to himself. Some days he has cursed and humbled and removed from their place. All his ways are according to his good pleasure. Like clay in a potter's hand, thus men are in the hand of him who made them, to render to them according to his judgment. Good is the opposite of evil, and life is the opposite of death. In the same way, a sinner is the opposite of a godly man. Therefore, upon all the works of the Most High, they also come in pairs, one the opposite of the other. I kept the last watch, like one gleaning after the harvest. By the blessing of the Lord I arrived in time, and like a grape picker I filled my winepress. Observe well that I did not labor for myself alone, but for all who seek instruction. Hear me, you leaders of the people, and you rulers of the assembly, listen to me. Do not give authority over yourself while you are still living, to your son or your wife, nor to your brother or a friend. And do not give your property to another, lest you change your mind and need to beg for it. While you are still alive and there is breath in you, do not change places with anyone. For it is better that your children should ask from you than that you should look to the hands of your sons. Be outstanding in all your works. Do not put a blemish on your reputation. On the day when the days of your life are fulfilled, at the time of your death, distribute the inheritance. Fodder, the rod, and a burden are for a donkey, and bread, instruction, and work are for a servant. Make a servant work, and you will find rest. Leave his hands idle, and he will seek freedom. Yoke and strap will bend the neck, and racks and tortures are for an evil servant. Put him to work, that he may not be idle, for idleness teaches much evil. Set him to work appropriate for him, and if he is not obedient, put heavy chains on his feet. And do not act superior toward any flesh, and do nothing without judgment. If you own a servant, let him be as yourself, for with your blood you bought him. If you own a servant, treat him as a brother, for you will need him as your own soul. If you treat him badly, and he runs away, which way will you go look for him? Wisdom of Sirach, chapter 34. Vain hopes and lying belong to a man without understanding, and dreams give wing to senseless men. Like him who grasps after shadows and chases the wind, so is he who pays attention to dreams. The vision of dreams is this against that, the likeness of a face opposite a face. What will be cleansed from an unclean thing? And what will be true from a false thing? Divinations, omens, and dreams are worthless, and like a woman in the pains of childbirth, the heart becomes visible. Unless visions are sent from the Most High in a visitation, do not give your heart to them, for dreams have deceived many, and those who hope in them have fallen away. Without such lying, the law will be fulfilled, and wisdom is perfection in the mouth of the faithful. A man who has traveled about knows many things, and a man with much experience will speak with understanding. A man who has not been tested knows little, but he who has traveled about increases his astuteness. I have seen many things in my travels, and my understanding is more than I can express in words. I have frequently been in danger of death, but I have been saved because of these experiences. The spirit of those who fear the Lord will live, for their hope is in him who saves them. He who fears the Lord will fear nothing, and he will not be cowardly, for the Lord is his hope. Blessed is the soul of a man who fears the Lord. To whom does he look? And who is his support? The eyes of the Lord are upon those who love him. He is a powerful protection and a strong support, a shelter from the burning heat, a shelter from the noonday sun, a guard from stumbling, and help from a fall. He raises up the soul and gives light to the eyes. He gives healing, life, and blessing. If a man sacrifices by means of wrongdoing, the offering is a mockery, and the gifts of the lawless are not accepted. The Most High is not pleased with the offerings of the ungodly, and a man does not atone for his sins with a multitude of sacrifices. He who offers a sacrifice from the property of the poor is like one who kills his son in the sight of his father. The bread of the needy is the life of the poor. He who deprives them of it is a man of bloodshed. Whoever takes away his neighbor's livelihood murders him, and whoever deprives a hired worker of his wages sheds his blood. If one builds up while another tears down, what do they profit other than toil? If one prays while another curses, whose voice will the Lord hear? If a man washes himself after touching a corpse, then touches it again, what does he profit by his washing? So it is with the man who fasts over his sins, and goes and does the same sins all over again. Who will hear his prayer? What does his humbling profit him? Wisdom of Sirach, chapter 35. The man who keeps the law will abound in offerings. He who heeds the commandments sacrifices a peace offering. He who returns a kindness offers fine wheat flour, and he who does alms sacrifices a praise offering. To forsake evil is pleasing to the Lord, and to forsake wrongdoing is atonement. Do not appear before the Lord empty-handed, for all these things are made because of the commandment. A righteous offering anoints the altar, and its fragrance rises before the Most High. The sacrifice of a righteous man is acceptable, and its remembrance shall not be forgotten. Glorify the Lord with your generosity, and do not reduce the first fruits of your hands. In every gift let your face be cheerful, and sanctify your tithe with gladness. Give to the Most High as he has given to you, and give to him with generosity according to your windfall. For the Lord is he who repays, and he will repay you sevenfold. Do not bribe him, for he will not accept it, and do not offer an unrighteous sacrifice. For the Lord is the judge, and there is no partiality with him. He will not show partiality to a poor man, but he will hear the petition of him who is wronged. He will not overlook the supplication of an orphan, nor a widow when she pours out her story. Do not the tears of a widow run down her cheeks as she cries out against him who caused them? He whose service is pleasing to the Lord will be accepted by him, and his prayer will reach to the clouds. The prayer of a humble man passes through the clouds, and he will not be comforted until it reaches the Lord. And he will not withdraw it until the Most High visits him, provides justice for the righteous, and executes judgment. So the Lord will not delay, neither will he be slow to help them, until he crushes the loins of the unmerciful and repays vengeance upon the nations, until he destroys the multitude of the insolent and crushes the scepter of the unrighteous, until he renders to a man according to his practices, and the works of men according to their devices, until he judges the cause of his people and brings them joy with his mercy. Mercy is beautiful in the time of his affliction, like rain in the time of drought. Wisdom of Sirach, chapter 36. Have mercy on us, O Lord, the God of all, and look upon us, and put your fear on all the nations. Raise your hand against foreign nations, and let them see your power. As in us you have been sanctified before them, so in them may you be made great before us. Let them know you, as we also have known you, for there is no God but you, O Lord. Renew your signs and work fresh wonders. Glorify your hand and your right arm. Stir up your anger and pour out your wrath. Drive away the adversary and destroy the enemy. Hasten the time and remember your oath, and let people declare your mighty works. Let him who survives be devoured in your fiery wrath, and may those who harm your people meet destruction. Crush the heads of the rulers of the enemies who say, there is no one but us. Gather together all the tribes of Jacob, and grant them their inheritance as from the beginning. Have mercy upon your people, called by your name, O Lord. Upon Israel, whom you have likened to your firstborn son, have pity on the city of your sanctuary. Jerusalem, the place of your rest. Fill Zion with the celebration of your divine virtue, and your people with your glory. Give testimony to what you created in the beginning, and raise up the prophecies spoken in your name. Reward those who wait for you, and let your prophets be found trustworthy. Hear, O Lord, the prayer of your suppliants, according to the blessings of Aaron over your people. And all the earth will know that you are the Lord, the God of the ages. The stomach eats any kind of food, but some food is better than others. As the palate tastes the flavor of game, so an understanding heart detects lying words. A crooked heart will cause grief, but a man with great experience will pay him back. A woman will accept any son, but one daughter is better than another. A beautiful woman gladdens a man's face, and surpasses his every desire. If there is mercy and gentleness on her tongue, her husband is not like other men. He who gains a wife gets his best possession, a helper like himself and a pillar of support. Where there is no wall, the property will be plundered, and where a man has no wife, he will wander around and groan. Who will trust a well-equipped thief who skips from city to city? Who will trust a man who has no home and lodges wherever night overtakes him? Wisdom of Sirach, chapter 37. Every friend will say, I too am your friend, but sometimes a friend is a friend in name only. Is it not a grief to the death when a companion and a friend turns to hatred? Oh, evil reasoning, why were you involved to cover the land with deceit? A companion delights in the gladness of a friend, but in time of affliction he will be against him. A companion labors to help a friend for his stomach's sake, and in a time of battle he will take up the shield. Do not forget a friend in your soul, and do not be unmindful of him with your wealth. Every counselor extols his own counsel, and some offer advice in their own interest. Protect yourself from a counselor, and know beforehand what is his interest, for he will take thought for himself, lest he cast his vote against you and say to you, Your path is good. Then he will stand aside to see what will happen to you. Do not consult with the man who looks at you suspiciously, and hide your counsel from those who envy you. Also, do not consult with a woman about her rival, nor with a coward about battle, nor with a merchant about exchange, nor with a buyer about selling, nor with a slanderer about gratitude, nor with an unmerciful man about generosity, nor with an idler about any work, nor with a seasonal hired hand about completing his work, nor with a lazy servant about a big job. Pay no attention to these in any counsel. Instead, persevere with a godly man who you know keeps the commandments, whose soul accords with your soul, and will share in your suffering if you fall. Stand firm on the counsel of your heart, for no one is more faithful to you than it. For a man's soul sometimes tells him more than 7 watchmen sitting high on a watchtower. And in all matters pray to the Most High, that he may direct your way in truth. A word is the beginning of every work, and counsel comes before every action. 4 types of things appear as a clue to a change of heart: good and evil, life and death, and it is the tongue that continually rules them. There is an astute man who is a teacher of many, but is useless to his own soul. A man who devises words craftily will be hated. This man will go hungry, for grace was not given to him from the Lord, because he is destitute of all wisdom. There is a man wise in his own soul, and the fruits of his understanding are trustworthy when he speaks. A wise man will instruct his own people, and the fruits of his understanding are trustworthy. A wise man shall be filled with blessing, and all who see him will consider him blessed. The life of a man is numbered by days, but the days of Israel are without number. The wise man will inherit trust among his people, and his name will live forever. My son, while you are still living, test your soul, and see what is bad for it, and do not give in to that. For not everything is profitable for everyone, and not every soul enjoys everything. Do not be gluttonous for every dainty food, and do not give yourself over to food. For overeating will bring sickness, and gluttony will lead to nausea. Many have died because of gluttony, but the careful man will prolong his life. Wisdom of Sirach, chapter 38. Honor the physician with the honor due him, and also according to your need of him, for the Lord created him. Healing comes from the Most High, and he will receive a gift from the king. The physician's skill will lift up his head, and he shall be admired in the presence of the great. The Lord created medicines from the earth, and a sensible man will not loathe them. Is not water made sweet by wood, that its strength might be known? And he gave skill to men, that he might be glorified in his wonders. By them he heals and takes away pain, a druggist making a compound of them. God's works are never finished, and from him health is upon the face of the earth. My son, do not be negligent when you are sick, but pray to the Lord, and he will heal you. Depart from transgression, and direct your hands aright, and cleanse your heart from every sin. Offer a sweet-smelling sacrifice and a memorial of the finest wheat flour, and pour oil on your offering, as if you are soon to die. and keep in touch with your physician, for the Lord created him, and do not let him leave you, for you need him. There is a time when success is also in their hands, for they will pray to the Lord to give them success in bringing relief and healing. For the sake of preserving your life, he who sins before the one who made him, may he fall into the hands of a physician. My son, let your tears fall for the dead, and as one suffering grievously begin the lament. With the honor due him, wrap his body and take care of his burial. Weep bitterly and lament fervently. Do your mourning according to what he deserves, for a day or two to avoid slander. Then be comforted for your grief. For grief is a cause of death, and a grief-stricken heart will sap your strength. Grief also abides in misery, and the life of a poor man weighs down his heart. Do not give your heart to grief. Drive it away, remembering the end of life. Do not forget, for there is no coming back, and you cannot help the dead man by grieving, but will only injure yourself. Remember my end, since yours is also like it. Mine yesterday, yours today. When the dead man is at rest, let his remembrance cease, and be comforted for him in the exodus of his spirit. The wisdom of a scribe depends on his opportunity for quiet, for when he has little business, he will be made wise. How will he who handles the plow be made wise? For he boasts in the shaft of the goad, and he drives oxen and is occupied with their labors. And his talk is about young bulls. His heart is set on plowing furrows, and he keeps watch to feed his heifers. The same is true for every craftsman and architect, who works by night as well as by day, those who engrave the signet of seals. He is diligent to make great variety, his heart set on creating a lifelike image, and keeping watch to perfect his work. So too is the blacksmith sitting near the anvil, examining closely his iron works, the breath of the fire melting his flesh as he struggles with the heat of the furnace. He inclines his ear to the sound of the hammer, and his eyes are focused on the likeness of the object. He sets his heart on the completion of his work and keeps watch to perfect its detail. The potter as well, sitting by his work and turning the potter's wheel with his feet. He is always careful about the quality of his work and also the quantity of his output. With his arm he molds the clay, and with his feet he curves it. His heart is set on finishing the glazing, and he is careful to clean the furnace. All these trust in their hands, and each is skilled in his work. Without them, a city will not be livable, nor will anyone sojourn or live there. Yet they will not be sought out for the counsel of the people, and they will not gain prominence in the assembly. They do not sit in the judge's seat, nor will they understand the sentence of judgment. They cannot give instruction in discipline or judgment, nor will they be found using parables, but they will keep the fabric of the world stable, and their prayer is in the practice of their craft. Wisdom of Sirach, chapter 39. How different is the man who devotes himself to the study of the law of the Most High. He will seek out the wisdom of all the ancients and be occupied with their prophecies. He will preserve the discourse of notable men and penetrate the subtleties of parables. He will seek out the hidden meanings of proverbs and be engaged in the riddles of parables. He will serve in the midst of great men and will appear before rulers. He will travel through the land of foreign nations and test the good and evil among men. He will give his heart to rising early before the Lord who created him, and will make supplication to the Most High. He will open his mouth in prayer and make supplication for his sins. If the great Lord wills, he will be filled with the spirit of understanding. He will pour forth words of his wisdom, and in prayer he will give thanks to the Lord. He will direct his counsel in knowledge aright, and he will reflect on his hidden things. He will reveal instruction in his teaching and boast in the law of the Lord's covenant. Many will praise his understanding, and it will never be blotted out. His memory will not disappear, and his name will live through all generations. Nations will proclaim his wisdom, and the assembly will proclaim his praise. If he lives long, he will leave a name greater than 1,000, and if he goes to his rest, his work is completed. I have yet more to tell, and I will describe it in detail, for I am filled like a full moon. So hear me, O holy sons, and bud forth like a rose, springing up by a running stream. Like frankincense, emit a sweet fragrance, and blossom forth like a lily. Send forth a fragrance, and sing a hymn of praise. Bless the Lord in all his works. Ascribe majesty to his name, and give thanks to him in praise, with songs on your lips, and with lyres. And thus you shall say in thanksgiving, all things are the works of the Lord, for they are exceedingly good. And every command shall be in his appointed time. No one can say, what is this? Why is that? For every question will be answered in his appointed time. By his word the waters stood as a heap, and the reservoirs of the waters by the word of his mouth. By his command all his good pleasure is done, and no one will diminish his salvation. The works of all flesh are before him, and nothing can be hidden from his eyes. From age to age he looks upon them, and nothing is marvelous to him. No one can say, what is this? Why is that? For all things were created for their uses. His blessing covers the dry land like a river, and drenches it like a flood. As he turns fresh water into salt, so the heathen will inherit his wrath. As his ways are straight to the holy, so they are an occasion of stumbling to the lawless. As from the beginning good things were created for the good, so evil things for sinners. The basic needs of a man's life are water, fire, iron, salt, and wheat flour, and milk, honey, the blood of the grape, olive oil, and clothing. All these things are good for the godly, so they turn into evil for sinners. There are spirits created for vengeance, and in his anger they strengthen their scourges. In the time of consummation they will pour out their might and appease the wrath of him who made them. Fire, hail, famine, and death. All these things are created for vengeance. The teeth of wild animals, scorpions, and snakes, and the avenging sword that drives the ungodly to destruction. They shall be glad at his commandment, and be prepared for his service on earth. And when their times come, they will not transgress his word. Therefore, from the beginning I was determined and resolved, and left this in writing. All the works of the Lord are good, and he will supply every need in its hour. No one can say, this is worse than that, for all things will be well-pleasing in their time. So now sing praise with all your heart and voice, and bless the name of the Lord. Wisdom of Sirach, Chapter 40. Hard work was created for every man, and a heavy yoke for the sons of Adam. From the day they come forth from their mother's womb until the day they return to the mother of all. The conception of all things to come and the day of death trouble their thoughts and cause fear of heart. From the one sitting on a glorious throne to the one humbled in earth and ashes. From the one wearing purple and a crown to the one clothed in burlap, there is anger, envy, trouble, and unrest, and fear of death and fury and strife. When it is time for the rest on his bed, his night of sleep alters his knowledge. He gets little or no rest, and afterward in his sleep, as though on a day of watch. He is troubled by the vision of his heart, like one who escapes from the face of battle. In the exact time of need he awakes, and is amazed there was nothing to fear. With all flesh, from man to animal, and upon sinners 7 times more, there will be death and bloodshed, strife and the sword, distresses and famine, and ruin and affliction. All these things were created for the lawless, and because of them the flood came. Whatever comes from the earth returns to the earth, and whatever comes from the waters returns to the sea. Every bribe and wrongdoing will be blotted out, but faithfulness shall stand forever. The wealth of the unrighteous will dry up like a river, and sound forth and cease like great thunder in the rain. A generous man will rejoice, but transgressors will come to ruin. The offspring of the ungodly shall not grow branches, for they are unclean roots on a hard rock. Weeds growing by any water or riverbank will be plucked out before any grass. Grace is like a paradise in blessing. and almsgiving endures forever. The life of the self-reliant and the worker will be sweet, but he who finds a treasure is better off than both. Having children and building a city establish a name, but a blameless wife is accounted better than both. Wine and music gladden the heart, but love of wisdom is better than both. The flute and harp gives sweet melody, but a pleasant tongue is better than both. The eye will desire grace and beauty, but the green shoots of grain are better than both. A friend and companion meet at an appointed time, but a wife meeting with her husband is better than both. Brothers and help are for a time of affliction, but almsgiving rescues better than both. Gold and silver will make the foot secure, but counsel is esteemed more valuable than both. Wealth and strength will lift up the heart, but the fear of the Lord is better than both. There is no loss in the fear of the Lord, and with it there is no need to seek for help. The fear of the Lord is like a paradise of blessing, and covers a man better than any glory. My child, do not live the life of a beggar, for it is better to die than to beg. When a man looks at another's table, he is living an irrational life, for he will pollute his soul with another's food. But a rational and educated man will guard himself against that. Begging will be sweet in the mouth of a shameless man, but in his belly a fire will be kindled.